Good evening and welcome to tonight's final virtual educational program for 2025, Housing for Our Children. My name is Michael Morrier and I am the Program Committee Chair with the Atlanta Autism Consortium Board of Directors. The Atlanta Autism Consortium is a nonprofit organization dedicated to creating collaboration and conversations throughout the Metro Atlanta autism community and beyond. Throughout the year, we host free educational programs just like this one on a wide variety of topics. And the entire AAC Board of Directors are so glad you've all joined us tonight. Before we get started, just a few brief housekeeping notes. Please know that as an attendee, your microphone and camera will remain muted, but you can ask questions you have throughout the program in the chat box at the bottom of your screen. I will be monitoring those and we will hold the majority of them until the end. We have a Q&A session available, but if it seems like it's an important question that has to be asked right while their panelists are speaking, I will ask it at that point. Additionally, we are recording this session and it will be posted on the AAC's YouTube channel in a few weeks. We'll be emailing out notification of when it's available, as well as the slides used during tonight's program and the contact information for our panelists. That information will be sent to the email address you used when registering for tonight's program. Tonight, I am so glad to introduce and bring you our panelists for this important topic. The panelists include AAC board member Lisa Casteel, Pam Blanton, founder of Partners for Housing, Jamie Martin, director at Partners for Housing, Vanessa Monday, marketing director at Partners for Housing, and Harrison Gross, co-founder of Specs Development, LLC. Without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Lisa, who will start our great program.
Good evening, everybody. I'm so glad you were able to join us tonight. As Michael said, I'm fortunate enough to be on the board of AAC, so I'm just excited to be able to host this with Michael and bring you guys this information. I have a daughter that is 27 years old, and she has autism along with some physical disabilities. So housing has been kind of a force for us, to try to figure out what is it that would work for her. There's lots of information out there. So I'm really hopeful that at the end of this, you will have some really good information to take away and start making some of the decisions that you need to make for your child and what makes sense for them. So having said that, if you could go ahead and start our PowerPoint, Michael, that would be great. There we go. So, as I said, it's all about housing for our kids, the dilemma that we have as special needs parents, and what does that mean for us, right? Because we're the ones that want to take care of our kids and make sure that they're safe, they're where they need to be, they can grow and continue to prosper. So if you could go to the next slide. And here's our agenda. I've got a couple of slides that talk about statistics, areas that we're going to discuss tonight, barriers, areas that we're going to actually talk about today, and that'll be handed over to Harrison and Pam, and then just some tips on starting the process and some funding resources, and then some final tips and takeaways. And then, as Michael said, then we'll talk about like questions and try to answer all of those. Next slide, please. Yeah. I'm an IT person. I love statistics. It really gives me a lot of information. So when I started putting this together, I wanted to try to present what made sense for me as a parent, and hopefully pass this on to you. So the first thing is like, what happens between the all students versus autistic and where the gaps are. And I really want to point out the last two, employment rate independent living for people that are over 21. As you can see, there's a huge gap both in the employment rate of 27 and then also independent living of 55, which is pretty big. So that to me highlighted the issues that are out there for our kids to be able to have that independent opportunity. Next slide, please. Another thing that was very important to me that I needed to find out was, what does it cost? I mean, these are all kind of normal questions that was kind of going through my mind as I was putting this together. And it really does depend on what you want for your child. You need to look at whether it's assisted living, group homes, supportive housing, or semi-independent living. And these prices varied widely, and they will vary widely as well, depending on where you're actually located. If you're in the Atlanta area and you're outside the Atlanta area, or even in a different state. So as you can see, some of the prices that I came up with range anywhere from $2,500 to $6,500, depending on where you wanted to go. And this will be something that Harrison and Pam will also talk about. But once you get the slide, you can kind of take a look at this and get a little bit more information. Next slide, please. More statistics. So I really wanted to point out here that the ability to get vocational type of services and compare Georgia to the average, we're not far off. I mean, Georgia's 77.13 and the average is 79.85. And those services would include helping you with housing and giving you some opportunities for housing. So we're not far off, I think, and that's good for our kids. So therefore, just kind of give you a little comfort factor as far as Georgia's concerned. And there's also some other states in there. I kind of wanted to, since we're in Georgia, I want to show the average in Georgia because that kind of made sense. So next slide, please. Current barriers. Again, Harrison and Pam can talk a little bit more about some of the barriers, but I think if you are looking into housing for your child, you've hit a lot of these things on wait lists. If you're looking at a waiver, what's the availability for housing? How can you pay for it? If you can find some housing, you might have some staffing shortages as well. Even the support systems that are in place, sometimes they have shortages. And then eligibility, it really depends on what you need, is going to define some of this eligibility. So again, we'll hopefully answer some of these questions as Harrison and Pam keep on talking when it's their turn. So hopefully that will help. This will help you. All right, next slide.
One thing, just so you know, and you may be getting to this in one of the panelists, but someone is interested in knowing, how does VR help with housing? And that, again, may be coming up later on. So
it might be coming up, or that might be something that we'll have to maybe take and address to that person. If we've got their name, we can maybe put that out there, or maybe add it to the website so we can help them. Okay. Yep, perfect. Thank you. So areas that we're going to cover today, when should you start looking for housing for your child? That's a big question. It's because there's a lot to be considered. So we'll get some advice on that. What type of housing? We talked about assisted living, group homes. What makes sense, right? What do you have out there? Just different things to look for. Financing it. Some of these options are very expensive. How can you get some help with those expenses, and make sure that you've got long-term cost accounted for? And then what's reasonable? I mean, is 25 reasonable for you? Maybe it's not for somebody else. I mean, is 6,500 not reasonable? Is it reasonable? We'll take a look at that. And then, as Michael said, at the end, there'll be times to ask your questions. And, and he's already brought some things up that are in the chat. So we'll continue to try to answer them or wait until the end, either one. So just be prepared for that. So having said all that, I'm going to hand it over to Harrison and let him help us out.
Thanks, Lisa. My name is Harrison Gross. I'm a licensed attorney and real estate broker. My journey with starting my business, Specs Developments LLC, begins with my brother, my younger brother, Sam Gross, who has autism. And growing up and going through business school and law school, talking with my mom specifically, it was always in the back of my head, this idea of housing for the IDD community and those neurodiverse adults. And so around 2021, I kind of hit an impasse as far as my career went. And with the help of my mom, we founded Specs Developments LLC, which is a real estate company that provides rentals and specialized real estate services to anyone really, but we try to focus it to the IDD community. So through these past nearly 5 years, we've acquired rental properties that we reserve and try to make them catered to the special needs community. So that means walkability, that means high quality housing that anyone would want to live in. And that means trying to keep it at a affordable price, especially when you're in Atlanta. So all of our properties are basically at or below market rent for that area. So through the years, before we were beginning, I would interview people that were doing housing for this community all across the country. I spoke with Better Living Together. I don't know if you've heard of them. Annandale Village. And my aha moment really came though when I spoke with this community called Luna Azul. And what they explained to me is that really the best way for offering housing for this community, as far as fastest and the most flexible, would be to separate the housing from the support. So what Specs Developments does is we only focus on the housing itself. So it is a landlord-tenant relationship. And for those that want to build equity through their own investments, for their own children, we're able to provide those real estate services through me as a real estate broker and attorney with helping people build their own Specs developments. So through that, we've kind of learned that by separating the support, you can avoid being considered a community living arrangement, certain zoning and permits. So I kind of equate it to getting a haircut in your apartment that you live in. You wouldn't tell the government about the haircut you're getting. So why would you tell them about a support individual that's coming in to help you learn independent skills? So through that, we've been able to grow pretty rapidly and have good success as far as our residents and seeing their independence blossom. We can kind of now, we'll go to the next slide. I'll kind of go through our property. So we have 4 townhomes. These are all in Atlanta, save for the Winter Creek House, which is technically in Dunwoody, and Specs 1, which is in Clayton, Missouri. We got the Lois House, which is a 4-bedroom. This is our first property that we purchased. It's a 4-bedroom, 3.5 bathroom manor house right by Edgewood Retail District. So we want our properties to be walkable. There's a Kroger and a Target that's a 5-minute walk away where you can access groceries and prescription medicine. So there's also job opportunities here. I believe one of the residents works at the Marshalls nearby. It's basically, it's near brand new. It was constructed late 2021. And this was our first property. So we weren't quite sure as far as would this work if we had 3 individuals with IDD who turned out to be female move into this property. Would they be able to thrive in this environment? So we went ahead and we professionally furnished this one. Then we purchased 3 townhomes in East Atlanta Village, which is another progressive and walkable area. These are 2-bedroom, 2.5-bathroom townhomes in one community. They're all right by each other, so there is that communal aspect built in where you'll have friends and resources. Just so maybe you don't drive, one of the other residents can drive you to the grocery store. That's a 3-minute drive away. There's a park nearby, tons of restaurants, great space, and we just have a vacancy in the Herald House. So we have 2 spots open. There's a female that's looking to move in and find a roommate. So we are currently on the search for someone for her. She has no preference for gender. So if that's something that you're interested in and you're like, I'd like to learn more about it, you can contact me later. The townhouse, like I said, we rent out to anybody. So this townhouse is available on Zillow right now. And I'm going to show you on the next slide some more pictures so you can kind of see it for yourselves and also take a look at our website. So the next property is our newest one. It's the Winter Creek House. It's a single-family home. It's our only single-family home located in Dunwoody, 5-bedroom, 5-bathroom, over 3,700 square feet. This is in Dunwoody Village. So again, super close to a Publix, about a 5-minute walk. Pizza place, Mellow Mushroom, a 5-minute walk. It's across the street from a swim and tennis club. Dunwoody is a relatively safe, easily walkable place. There are currently 3 males that live in this property, and they're also, this is actually breaking news, they're also looking for a 4th roommate to move in with them. So preferably a male for them. The last property is Specs 1, and that's our apartment complex. This is in Clayton, Missouri. I imagine most people here are Georgia, but we just thought we'd mention it. I went to WashU business school. My mom's family's from St. Louis, and that, they're in need of housing as well. So this this apartment came on the market, and I believe it was 2022, 2023, and we purchased it. And they have condo quality apartments. So let's go ahead and we can take a look at them. And I think the first one will be the lowest house. So you can do the next slide here. So yeah, it's these townhomes, by the way, have a lot of stairs. So they're pretty narrow and tall, but there is a lot of square footage. I believe the lowest house is around, I think, 2,000 to 2,500 square feet. But as you can see, very nice quality rooms, kitchen, beautifully decorated, and walkable to Edgewood Retail District. So next slide is our East Atlanta Village townhomes. And these are all they're constructed by Toll Brothers. So you'll kind of notice they're pretty homogeneous as far as the color scheme and the flooring. But these are 1,500 square feet. They have beautiful terraces on top that overlook East Atlanta Village. And you can see, there's a terrace sail overlooking that one. So the next one, I think, next slide is the Winter Creek House. So you can take a look at this. Yeah, huge house, great yard. This was actually built in 1975, but the owner took meticulous care over it. Really nice property. Like I said, one bedroom is available here. And then we'll show Specs 1 as the last property. Yeah, so these are a little bit smaller. They're in Missouri. Clayton is, I'd say Clayton's pretty comparable to Dunwoody as far as being a safe, walkable place with quality real estate. And I guess the last thing I'll mention before I pass it off to Pam is that kind of what makes us special is that through my family has a charity organization called Miracle Makers. And like I said, we keep the property and the support separate. Those that are listening, if you're familiar with Annandale Village, they provide a housing community in Suwanee. I forget how big they are, but they're huge. They're probably one of the biggest in the Atlanta area. And what they have is a mobile unit called All In, where they teach independent skills on site. So if you go back to that slide to the Winter Creek House, for instance. back. Yeah, sorry about that. So for instance, the stove here, you got the dishwasher, all in would come to meet with your child on this site and kind of teach them safety, independent skills. So when it comes to like grocery shopping, hygiene, budgeting, all sorts of skills that we, you know, as adults face in our everyday lives when we're living, all in assists with that on site. And through, like I said, through my family's, it's called a donor advisory fund. It's like a charity. They can provide 1 year of free support from All In. So you would just be paying as a family rent from a landlord-tenant perspective. You'd be in charge of taking good care of the property, paying rent every month, but free would be All In coming to provide that specialized care that would be catered to your child. So that's kind of something special that's unique to us. My family, just trying to help the community. We've seen, like I said, a lot of great strides from individuals, such as going to the grocery store for the first time, planning trips together that All In is organized. It's been a treat to see over these past 5 years our residents grow, and we're hoping to get some new residents for at this East Atlanta Village Townhome and in the Winter Creek House. And yeah, I just want to say that it's the advice I give to families is, and I think Lisa kind of touched on it, is that really now is the best time while you as a parent, you're healthy and you are able to kind of witness firsthand and aid your child as they acquire these independent skills, so that you can see it for yourself, so that, you know, one day when you're gone, or you're, you know, when that day comes, you know that your child is in good hands and that they're safe and that they can take care of themselves. And that's kind of what we're striving for with these properties. So with that, I'll pass it over to Pam, who will continue. Thanks.
Thanks, Harrison. Welcome, everyone. I'm Pam Blanton, and we work with families to help them create housing solutions that meet the unique needs of their loved ones. So we start by really helping them answer 3 questions. What does my loved one need to live outside our family home? Who will they live with? And how do we afford it? The big questions. So we have a video. It's to save some words from me. We'll show you the story of Partners for Housing so you can understand, and then I'll come back and elaborate a little bit.
Before we started working with Partners for Housing, I didn't feel like there were very many options. I think we thought Troy would be living at home forever.
We just didn't have the direction. Partners for Housing gave us a path forward.
Because I couldn't imagine anything worse than her having lived with us all her life, losing her parents, and then having all of that disrupted. So we really wanted her to move out while we were still alive and while we could support that transition.
When we found Partners for Housing, they immediately stepped in and kind of embraced us as a family.
Families worry about who will care for their loved one when they're no longer able, and about the costs of housing and care. They worry about loneliness and isolation. It can seem impossible to make a realistic, achievable plan for the future.
The biggest worry for a parent is that your child is going to grow up into adulthood and not have community.
You know, my neighbor has one of them.
Gaining access to the benefits your loved one is eligible for can be very challenging. There are so many government agencies and social service programs. It's hard for families to find the best solution.
It's a complicated system, right? And there's a lot of emotion attached to it as well. So when you're in an emotional state, you're not always at your most rational, or you don't always think clearly, and trying to figure out the systems by yourself is, you can do it, it's just really difficult and time consuming, and there's a lot of bumps along the way.
Partners for Housing helps families maximize their benefits and create housing solutions that meet the unique needs of their loved ones. The first step is to complete the residential assessment. This assessment will identify gaps in your loved one's benefits and services
and help clarify your family's vision for the future.
And when we connected with Partners for Housing and started going through the residential assessment, we discovered layers of services that could be available if we knew how to tap into them.
The residential assessment includes a comprehensive review to ensure your loved one has all the benefits and services that they're eligible for, a follow-up consultation to identify the steps you can take now to prepare for the future, and assistance navigating the application process for Section 8 housing vouchers and other programs.
So Partners for Housing allowed us to know how important Section 8 was, the process of getting into Section 8. Whenever you work with federal and state and county government, it is a bureaucracy.
The residential assessment is an online questionnaire that you can begin today and complete at your own pace.
My first impression of the residential assessment was its absolute thoroughness. It covers so many aspects of my daughter's life. It was inspiring, it gave us courage, it gave us hope, it gave us energy to take the necessary steps to move through the process.
Partners for Housing offers additional services to help families create a shared living home. Shared living is when people with disabilities live together to share the cost of housing and services. Our roommate matching pool helps you find compatible roommates and like-minded families with similar housing goals. Our shared living development services guides families through the process of realizing their vision of a safe, supported, and resilient housing solution.
We wanted something that we could set up that would repeat itself and be able to be lasting long after we're gone.
My favorite is living with these two and the independence that's given me.
Completing a residential assessment is the first step toward identifying the resources that can make your family's unique housing goals achievable. Partners for Housing will help you with advice, recommendations, and a list of steps that you can take to prepare for the future.
Start early, and in fact, it's never too early to start.
Yeah, start the process now. My wife and I put it off for years and years and years until my wife passed away. You know, it's like they say, the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today.
And she's grown in ways we didn't expect and in ways we did expect, and we're just really proud.
When we go out to see our boyfriends, we also see movies, and we would also go bowling.
So I live like 5 minutes away from my parents, so that's really nice actually.
We are actually more engaged with each other living apart. And now when he comes home on weekends that Beth is off, we play cards. There's much more social interaction between us and Jeremy, which is very delightful.
Visit www.partnersforhousing.com for more information. Take the first step toward their journey home for you, your loved one, and your entire family.
Are you happy here?
Yes.
Powell?
Yes.
Okay, that's a little bit about Partners for Housing. Now we have a few slides I'm going to share with you. So when a person purchases our benefits and housing review, first of all, I'm going to make a little clarification. When we did the video, we were calling it a residential assessment. We since got a large contract in the state of Washington where we served over 2,500 families in the past 3 years. And during that time, we saw a lot of families who weren't ready to take a step because they said, oh, we're not ready for residential yet, so we're not going to do the residential assessment. So we changed the name to our benefits and housing review because what we do with that first step is to help families prepare for the time when they're ready for their loved one to move out, making sure they have all the benefits they're entitled to, understanding their housing options, and really just get a sense of the direction they want to move. So we call it our benefits and housing review. So next slide, please. So once a person completes our benefits and housing review, and submits it, then they can schedule a time on our calendar for a follow-up consultation, typically an hour via Zoom. And we talk about a lot of things. Housing options is one of them. Now, we're based in Washington State. We've served a number of families in Georgia. For the past 3 years, we've been serving families in Georgia. There's a lot of excitement about housing, I think, and looking at different options there. So when we talk about housing options, I'm going to use descriptive words instead of the terms because every state uses, the words can mean something different. So we're going to talk about the different housing options in the way that they look. So a provider controlled setting is also like what a lot of families or states call a group home. Typically, the caregiver owns and operates the home, and the individuals come and live with him or her. This is also called a companion home, sometimes adult foster care. That's a provider-controlled setting. An agency-controlled setting is, like it sounds, an agency staffs the home 24/7. So typically in shifts. And then you have your consumer-controlled home. That is what we help families set up. It's a family-driven housing solution. It's also called a shared living, where the individuals rent their home and they invite people in to help provide their supports. If the caregivers don't work out, the caregivers leave and the residents invite somebody else in to come provide support. Okay, next slide, please. So with the benefits and housing review, we talk about housing options. We talk about what benefits their loved one has. Do they have SSI benefits? Do they have services from the state? We talk about Section 8 housing subsidies, food benefits. We also talk about how remote technology can support people in their housing. And we have an online roommate matching pool where if you're interested, the families can join our pool. They can look for other compatible roommates and like-minded families who want to partner to create a housing solution that meets the unique needs of the individuals living in that home. We're going to talk a little bit more about Section 8 on the next slide. Okay, Section 8 housing subsidies. This is sort of part of our secret sauce. So we've been fortunate in the state of Washington. We had a really unique Section 8 program in the Seattle area. It launched in early 2000. I was on the planning committee in the late 90s for that program. And what they did was our local housing authority called together all the major social service systems, developmental disabilities, mental health, veterans, people living with AIDS. There were 9 different social service systems they called together, and they said, basically, if you help your clients through the paperwork, find a place to rent and be a good tenant for a year, we'll give you vouchers. It's been just one of the best disability voucher programs in the nation. And so we learned a lot about what's possible with Section 8. And when a person has Section 8, they pay 30% of their income toward rent, and the housing authority pays the rest up to a limit set by HUD based on that particular geographical area. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, oh, our housing authority hasn't opened their Section 8 list in years, or we've been on the list for 10 years and the list is years and years long. And that's true for a lot of housing authorities. But what most people don't know is that you can put your name on lists all over the nation. It doesn't have to be just your local housing authority. Typically, when your name comes up on a housing authority's list, you have to live in their jurisdiction for 1 year. But if you're a person with a disability, you can request reasonable accommodation to transfer that voucher immediately. And we show families how to do that. We've showed a lot of families how to do that. So a lot of great benefits with Section 8. You can request reasonable accommodation if you're a person that needs somebody to live in and provide care. And the housing authority will pay the rent for the caregiver as well. So you can see how Section 8 can help families put together, you know, the financial pieces to make the housing sustainable long-term. Typically with Section 8, you can't rent from a relative, but if you're a person with disabilities, you can also request reasonable accommodation to rent from a relative. And not typically their bedroom in your family home, but if you had another property or you purchased another property, they could request accommodation to rent from you. There's also special loan programs for parents who want to purchase for a loved one with a disability. So all of these things we talk about when you do the benefits and housing review. We meet with you for about an hour to go through all of these things, and we can tailor that consultation to you. Okay, next slide, please.
Okay, before we move on, there are a couple of questions about Section 8.
Okay.
One is, when should you start looking at Section 8?
That's a good question. You have to be 18 to put your loved one's name on the list. They need to be 18. When a person gets a voucher, they have a limited amount of time to put it in place. So once it's issued, you have, you know, typically 90 or 120 days to put it in place. So if your loved one is turning 18, but you're not really thinking about housing till they're 25, it's a little early to start. But, you know, we show families how to work with that. It can take years, but if you get your name on a whole bunch of lists, then of course you have a better chance of your name coming up sooner. One thing I failed to tell you earlier is that Vanessa on our team maintains a list of all the open Section 8 wait lists across the nation, and she updates that twice a week. So for families who purchase our benefits and housing review, they can go on and find a list of, on our website, find our list of all open wait lists, and can apply with all the links to apply directly there. So we make it easy and we show families how to do that.
Okay, and then another question about Section 8 was, they were wondering if the Georgia Section 8 rules have become less of a barrier to housing, because the last they heard, this person heard, there were issues with eligibility if the potential recipient was in a shared living or communal living situation.
So Section 8 is a federal housing program, so its rules are covered by the Department of Housing and Urban Development, and they're the same everywhere. Sometimes there's some interpretations around reasonable accommodation. I'll just also say we've helped families set up 66 shared living homes serving 134 people, and all of those homes have Section 8. They're all shared living. And they have all of those 66 homes have a live-in caregiver as well. So sometimes, you know, we do a lot of consulting nationally on Section 8 to help people with the semantics to get their accommodation requests approved. So sometimes it's just a little bit tricky on asking the question in the right way. We have a lot of experience with Section 8. I've been doing this since the late 90s. And so we have a good success rate helping families get through that process.
And then one last question is, someone was asking if you could explain exactly what Section 8 is. They're a little confused about.
Okay, that is a good question. So Section 8 is a federal housing subsidy. It's the funding comes from the Department of Housing and Urban Development, also known as HUD, and it's administered by local housing agencies. There's two kinds of Section 8. There's project-based Section 8, and there's housing choice vouchers. Project-based Section 8 is a subsidy that's tied to a particular unit. So a person can benefit from that subsidy when they're living in a particular unit. What we show people is how to access housing choice vouchers. Those are issued to an individual. And as long as that person follows the rules of the program, they can keep that voucher indefinitely. Historically, I should add to that. When a person has Section 8, they pay 30% of their income toward rent and utilities, and the housing authority pays the rest. So it's a housing subsidy separate from, and I'm going to echo what Harrison said, and whenever I'm talking to families about housing, it's very good to think about housing in two buckets. What is the rent and what's the support services, right? So Section 8 is a subsidy for the rent. It has some extra benefit that can also pay the rent of a caregiver, so that can be helpful in the support package. Okay, next slide. Okay, shared living development. So like we said, we help families set up shared living homes. Once they have all the benefits that they're entitled to, and they're in our roommate pool, they found a group of roommates, and then we help them through the process of setting up a shared living home that's unique to their loved ones who are living in that home. You know, it takes work on the part of families to set up a shared living home. You know, we don't find a caregiver, we don't find a house. What we do is lead families through a series of steps. And so families are doing the work to set up the homes. But they like this model. A lot of families like this model because it gives them a lot of choice and control. And choice and control over location, over caregivers and roommates. And so this is a family-driven model. It's not for everyone, but it's another option for families who are trying to imagine what the future looks like for their loved one. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we talked about our roommate matching pool too. You know, it's important, very important to find compatible roommates. It's also very important that the families are compatible and that the families share vision and values, because they're going to work together to set the home up and provide oversight. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, how long does it take? And we heard, you know, we've heard it echoed through this webinar about starting early. It's important to start early. So we tell families this is a process that can take 2 to 5 years. You know, the benefits and housing review is the first step with us. Families can go on to our website, purchase the benefits and housing review. You get immediately access to it. Some families sit down and complete the whole thing in one sitting. A lot of families take their time with that benefits and housing review and get input from others. You know, we've heard over and over again from families that the questions on the benefits and housing review itself are very valuable because it gets families thinking about things they hadn't yet thought of. The next step for us would be in the roommate matching pool. We really encourage families and individuals to spend a year getting to know each other before they go sign a 1-year lease. You know, most people are going to sign a 1-year lease when they move out. And so making sure you have a good fit is important for success. And then the process of setting up a shared living home typically takes about a year. Some families work slower at it. It's important to take the time to do it right, but we usually estimate that's going to be about a year or more, depending on the pace the family wants to take. And then, you know, how long does it take to get a voucher? Well, you know, it's kind of a factor of how many are out there, how many lists you get your loved one's name on. And you don't have to wait to move out until you have a voucher. We just want to help make sure you understand eligibility so that when your name does come up on a list, you can put it in place where you are. So that's why we say, and we always say, start early. Important first to think of the benefits that you have, find the right partners before you go to the process of trying to set up a shared living home. Okay, I think that is it. Maybe there's one more slide.
Just a couple of questions related to this process. What is the cost of the review, and how early should they start? Like, this looks like it should be like at least a year, or does it?
So the benefits and housing review is $500. We Okay, so the first question was, what's the cost? $500 for the benefits and housing review. It includes the questionnaire, the benefits review, the follow-up consultation, and access to our roommate matching pool. How long does it take? Well, we have people signing up every day for our benefits and housing review and completing it and submitting it. That's really on the family, how long that takes. You know, finding the right roommate can take some time. We are expanding nationally. It takes time to grow the pool in different geographical areas. And we're working on that now. Like I said, we had a 3-year contract with the state of Washington. That funding ended in June. We just got a contract in the state of Colorado. We're always looking for opportunities to provide funding where states give us funding to offer the benefits and housing review free. So if anybody knows of any opportunities, feel free to reach out. And I think maybe I answered that question. Did I hit it all, Michael?
Yeah, I think you did. And then another one came in while you were answering. So does this process really just look for shared living, parent-driven things, or can an individual do it themselves through you?
Yeah, so housing is really a big process. Whether you have disabilities or not, it's very hard to get through all of the process of setting up a shared living home. So it's important to have a team around you to help do all the things. And we've worked also with self-advocates, but it's much more successful if you have a team to help you. And when we say family, we say you define your family, right? It might be your support team. It might be your family. It might be friends. But it really does take, a village. And so having people around to help support is important. Was there any more questions there?
No, that was the last one for that. I think you're going to get to some of the other questions. Like, one of the biggest ones that was coming in is like, how do you apply and how do you get notified if you qualify? So you may be getting into that in this section.
So this particular slide talks in very general terms about how to start the process. As Pam and both Harrison had noted, it may be different in different states, and different support systems might tell you to do something different. So what I was trying to do here with their help is, here's some basic guidelines as far as the now comp waiver, and I put links in here for everybody so they can just, once they get the documentation, they just can hit the links and get there. Medicaid, choice vouchers, I think Pam talked a little bit about that, and then defining your level of need. So I'm going to open it up to both Harrison and Pam to kind of elaborate on these particular things from their perspective, because they have way more knowledge about this stuff than I do.
So I'll just say one thing here. You asked a question earlier and I'm not sure I answered it, but when to start. We love it when we meet a family with a 17-and-a-half-year-old, because then we can say, here's what you do. Here's how you apply for SSI. Here's how, now's the time to learn about the state services if you haven't already. Here's Section 8. Is your loved one interested in roommates? Do you want to set up your own? Shared living is a very broad term. You could see from our video, we had one woman who has 2 live-in caregivers. We have sometimes 3 people with care that just comes in. So it can look a lot of different ways. One thing we're not great at is helping you access state services, because every state has a different Medicaid program. We're very good in Washington State, but when we're talking to families from Georgia, we refer you over to Bobby Dodd and Anna Mackey to talk about services that you could be eligible, state services. But we talk about the housing choice vouchers, and we show families all over how to get on that. Harrison, do you have anything to add to that?
No, as far as, yeah, I always just recommend new tenants to to immediately get on the housing voucher list. And now that you know, Pam's a good resource. I've been referring people to you as well, just saying that you know how to best operate in the system.
So I'll just say, you know, when you're just starting out and you're applying for SSI, you know, it's important. We help you. We have a simple rental agreement, because if you're charging rent, then you can get the full amount of the SSI. So different things will give you sort of the tricks of how to access those federal benefits. And when it comes to state benefits, and we go into a new state, we look for experts in that state to help families with that.
And I do know that now comp waiver provides some support based on the individual. They'll send aides out to do similar support like I was talking about that All In does. So that's also something, that's also a long list though to get on, but I recommend everyone listening to definitely do that along with the housing voucher.
And I was told from a personal standpoint too, from the now comp waiver is, to Harrison's point, it is a long list, but get on it. It should eventually work for you, and you'll be able to get that help you need. Don't give up, right? Even though you think nobody has contacted you or it's been a long time, please don't give up. Just kind of, you know, call them and just keep on trying. All right. Also from a personal perspective, being able, I actually used Bobby Dodd to get SSI Medicaid for my daughter, which has been a great help. You have no idea. And we tried to do it by ourselves, and we're not successful. But then we got them involved, and we got it, and it's been extremely a great benefit for my daughter. So I'm very happy about that. So those are just personal notes from my perspective. I think we can go to the next slide if you don't mind, Michael. Thank you. All right, so the next thing was funding resources. We, you know, I think some of these things we've kind of touched on, but I'm going to again open it up to Harrison and Pam to make any kind of comments that maybe we haven't necessarily touched on, and just kind of give you some ideas, and hopefully give you some things to think about.
And before you start that, someone was asking, since it's come up a few times, what is Bobby Dodd?
Harrison, do you want to take,
Bobby Dodd? No, I don't know who was mentioning Bobby.
Okay, so Bobby Dodd is an organization that's in Atlanta, and they are a organization to help you get through now comp. They help you with SSI, Medicaid, all these things that you might have questions about. That's what I use them for specifically. And Anna Mackey is like a gem. She's wonderful. She's the person to contact. And so by all means, oh, thank you, Melanie. I just see she posted the website. Please go there. They have a bunch of information, and they are very, very, very helpful to help anybody that needs an autistic help with their kids. Options. They have a bunch of information. They will help you.
Okay, sorry to interrupt that. Now we can go back. I just wanted to get that since it was just brought up.
No, that's a good question. I just assumed everybody in Georgia knew about Bobby Dodd. There you go. All right, so back to this slide. Harrison, Pam, any updates or that you might be able to provide for us in this perspective? This would be great.
The one thing I wanted to mention, just in case it wasn't clear, is that the goal of our properties is hopefully to make them a forever home. So while you're receiving that free support courtesy of Miracle Makers from All In for that year, the idea is that this is a place that you can stay at. Our tenants, some have been with us since the beginning, so they're coming up on year 5. They just signed their new lease at the Lois house. And just speaking from experience with my brother, once you find a place that works for your child or loved one, you want to keep them there, and you want to keep it going as long as possible. So that's really the goal. But at the same time, we do help people that are, like I said, trying to start their own thing, their own investments, and it definitely requires more capital to do that, but it's happy to help and offer my services in that realm as well.
Anything before?
I would just say, you know, there's a lot of planning that goes in when you start thinking about the future. You know, special needs trusts and ABLE accounts are very good tools to have. And, you know, everything that you've listed here too are, you know, there's just, as you can see, and as all families of who have loved ones with disabilities, it's a bunch of silos that you need to navigate, and you have to try to figure out how they fit together without and follow the rules of all of them. So it's challenging. And that's what we really try to help families do, is navigate that and have confidence that they're working toward what they want. And so that's all of these things we will talk about when we get families one-on-one too.
Thank you. And our last slide, from my perspective as a parent with a autistic child, I found some websites that I believe would help and just kind of give everybody a little bit more information, options, things to consider, support services, and I can talk about some of these things from a personal perspective, Spectrum, Just People, the Marcus Autism Center. They're exceptional futures. I mean, I know some of these places, and so hopefully this is helpful for everybody to get you started. Hopefully Harrison and Pam have provided some good information for you. We still have time for questions, but you know, when you get this, hopefully you can use these and it's helpful for you guys. That was all of our goals on this one, and my main goal when I started taking this on to present to you guys. So that's as much as I can say at this point. So I'm going to let Michael take over and see if there's any other questions for anybody, for Pam, Harrison, Jamie. And I think, I'm sorry.
Yes, there are, and now I'm trying to find them again, the ones that I saw. So, one of them was, how does continuous housing work when the parents are deceased? Is there anyone that could help someone with a disability keep housing once the family is deceased?
So I'll take a stab. You want me to take a stab, Harrison? Then you can go.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. So, you know, part of the planning is always thinking about who's going to step into your shoes when you're no longer able. And so part of the job of setting up a home, it can seem so overwhelming, but once it's set up, the structure is there, it's a lot easier for somebody else to step in. So whether or not you're doing a shared living home, you know, that we help families with, or you're in a spec home, or you're in a state-funded group home, you still need to think about who is going to step into my shoes. And is it a sibling, a cousin, a friend? Are you going to have a paid guardian? It's easier to think about that, I will say, based on experience, once you've gone through the process and you have something set up, because it's so overwhelming to think about early on. Always looking and thinking about, we ask questions about that in our benefits and housing review. Does your loved one have guardianship? Are you thinking about supported decision making? Do they not need that at all? Is there somebody to step in? Is not? Let's start thinking about that. But, it's really also so helpful when you get into housing, like spec housing, with a landlord that is dedicating that housing to our population or to your loved one. We have families that purchase, sometimes not everybody can afford to do that, but when you're renting on the private market, it can be scary thinking about, like, in a year, is my landlord going to sell, and then we got to move and start all over. So when you have an opportunity like Harrison and spec housing provides, or another landlord that's dedicated to the mission of serving our loved ones, then it gives families a lot of peace of mind.
Yeah, I think you answered that. That was a great answer. And the one thing I'd add too is that I would look into some sort of trust that you can set up as far as the funding element goes, and that can fill in those gaps.
So there was a question, since you brought up trust, let me find it now. Can you go over the difference, and this may be what you're talking about, may not. Can you go over the difference between special needs trust versus an ABLE account, and who do you actually contact to set up those special needs trusts that could help some of this?
So as far as the difference between a special needs trust and an ABLE account, that's a bit above my pay grade. I do landlord tenant law mostly, and I did bankruptcy before that. I do know some of our tenants pay us from, it's called a stable account. I don't know if that's similar to an ABLE account. But I do have some, I'm trying to remember who, because my mom actually uses a special needs trust attorney, and the name, I'm going to shoot her a text to ask, and I'll type it in the chat when I figure that one out.
Okay.
Me too. I'm going to try to stay in my lane, but I'll just, special need trusts and ABLE accounts are tools you can use to help you protect benefits. And so there are people that specialize in those that can help you. And it is called a stable account in Georgia. The national name is ABLE account. Sometimes states have a little bit different name, but, it's an opportunity to protect resources so that you can continue to have your benefits.
Okay, and I just text Cumberland Trust, they're a professional trustee. I don't know if my messages are showing up in the chat.
Yes,
so.
they are. They're showing up there. So. And then a couple of questions for Harrison specifically. Yeah. In Atlanta, how much are people paying per month outside of SSI?
Good question. So I'll just keep it to these openings. So per family, like I said, we do it at or below market rent. We're subjected to the same costs that everyone around the state's subjected to. So per family, the Harold House is $1,500 per month. And I usually say that it really depends for utilities. Depends on how much you're using up energy. But I'd say around $150 per month. So that's around $1,650 per family. And the Dunwoody house is a little bit more expensive because it's a full-size house in a more expensive area, Dunwoody versus East Atlanta. And that's $1,675 a month. And I'd say the utilities are maybe a little bit cheaper since they're split 4 ways. So around 100 to 125. So that's around $1,800 a month total. But I will mention though, the all-in support would typically cost you, a family, $2,200 a month if you're going to do private pay for them. So I think that's a huge value. That's way more than what you'd be spending on rent. And like I said, I wish we could make things cheaper, more affordable, but it's just kind of the society we are in and what our costs are. But I will say our properties do get attention on the open market. I just did a showing for the Herald House today on Zillow, so we rent to anyone, and they are interested in applying. So that that opportunity might even be gone by tomorrow.
And then another question for you, Harrison, is does your website have lists for roommate openings, or how do people find out about openings, and what kind of vetting is being done? Or, is it because the organization is the landlord, or do people come with roommates? Do you find them? Kind of how does that work?
Another good question. So as far as the finding out about opportunities and openings in our property, I tell people to join our email list on our website. It's located on the bottom of our website. You can just join. And we have a little scroll at the top that says when there's openings in our properties. And we also send out an email to everyone on the list just explaining what the opening looks like. As far as the vetting goes, so we are just we run as a typical LLC. So just what would a landlord normally check for someone that wants to move in? So that would be a background check, a rental history check, that would be a credit check, and that would be like a income check. So we just want to make sure that the person moving in can afford it, is a safe individual, that no violent or criminal history, and treats if they've had prior living arrangements, they treat where they live with respect. So that's our vetting process. We have just a standardized application process that neurodivergent or neurotypical you would go through. So as far as finding the roommates, it really depends on the property. So for instance, we kind of just piecemeal it together. We know this, for instance, this female resident wants to move into the Herald House. So we send out an email saying that they're looking for a roommate. So we just drum up our local network. We do panels like this to get the word out. But ultimately, as far as the roommate compatibility, Pam would be someone great to consult with, but we leave it up to the families, and sometimes All In will weigh in as well to just kind of, you never know whether or not roommates are going to get along until they move in together, but you do the best as you can, do your due diligence as far as making sure that they're going to fit together. So for instance, the Winter Creek house has one spot open. Most likely what would happen is you as a family would call the other 3 families and kind of just talk about your loved one and see how they would fit in from a abstract standpoint, and then hopefully it would lead to some sort of meeting, maybe at the Mellow Mushroom nearby, where you guys can all grab some pizza and kind of see how it goes. And you just got to really ultimately do your due diligence there and make sure it's a good fit. But as far as our side, we just treat everyone the same regardless of disability or not.
And then a question to the group: what is the process if someone with a disability and their family decides to move to another state? Would they have to reapply for like Section 8, Medicaid, SSI, or does what they have move with them?
So Medicaid and SSI SSI and Section 8 are federal programs, so those should move with you. It's difficult Medicaid is each state has their own program. So if you have a waiver and you try to move another state, you're going to have to get on lists in the new state for the new waiver. Harrison, if you have anything to add to that.
That's really, as far as the transporting the waiver and the housing voucher, that's not my expertise, but I imagine you would just talk to the HUD or the Department of Disabilities and see how that works. That would be my advice there.
You can for sure port a voucher. So once you've had it, you can transfer it. It can follow you everywhere. And then it's the state services that are tricky.
Again, this was great information. I mean, again, I don't deal a lot with housing, but I get asked it every once in a while. People thinking way in advance, like, what do I do about housing? And I'm always like, oh, I don't know. So now I have some answers that I can give them. Thanks to Lisa and all of you for putting this together for us.
Yep. Thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it. I really do.
Been a pleasure. Yeah, thank you.